It's the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show.
Off-season is now upon us.
We're setting up shop, so pop open the cooler, pull up a seat.
Who wants to have some fun?
Let's talk some pigskin.
With the first pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Tennessee Titans select Cameron Ward, quarterback, Miami.
Really good day scrimmage-wise, some really good competitive periods all around. Definitely fun for our group. I'm definitely seeing improvement across the board.
Today's more about young guys. Guys get an opportunity to put more on film to see what they can do and how they can help us.
From the Score Sports Closet, it's the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Score Sports Den. It's time to get back on the mics. Hello, test 1, 2. Does this thing work? Yeah. We set them back up. We're ready to go. It's time to talk a little bit of football. As I said earlier, there is no offseason in football, and so we are ready to talk some football here on the offseason on our YouTube channel. Welcome in, everybody, to 1490 The Score on YouTube. Strictly going with the video stream here today, and we are happy to have everybody here with us and joining in on the festivities. Let's see, Knight, we've got the NFL Draft just had the first round. We've got spring football going on for the Ducks and Beavers. We got a lot in store for everybody. We are just going to roll right through a lot of stuff here and be talking about all sorts of fun stuff here coming up on the program today. No commercial breaks because we're not on the radio, so we don't have to follow a format. We can just do whatever we want. Isn't that the joys of being on the internet and doing like a video podcast?
You know, that is the joy. You don't have the set in stone commercial breaks. So it is a little bit different. We can freestyle a little bit more. But, you know, I think that's the joy of this, right? You know, we get a lot more creativity. We get a lot more flexibility. And, you know, that's kind of what you want because we've been gone for a really long time. We've emerged out of hibernation. We're back in the den. And here we are. We get to just talk as much as we want.
Well, mainly we're here. Cubs baseball's in a weather delay,
the Cubs are in hibernation.
So why not just break open the mics and talk a little bit of football instead? He's Knight Jarecki. I'm Joey Keeran. We are excited to be here with you. This is what we call the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show. We do this usually during the fall season, during football. We talk a lot of football on Fridays from noon till 2. Yes, yeah, noon till 2. Remember what time we do everything.
It's been a long time,
Yeah, it's been a little bit. So noon to 2, we usually do it on Fridays during the fall football season and talking about local high school football, college football for the Ducks and the Beavers and beyond here in the state of Oregon, and also talking the NFL throughout that fall. So happy to have you guys here with us. Taking a look at what we got in tap for you here today. Oh, we've got Oregon spring football coming up this weekend. They have their spring game at Autzen Stadium. Going to be a fun time there. Going to be an opportunity to see a lot of guys, hopefully see a lot of guys that are new to the program, that are going to be, new names to learn and love when it comes to Oregon Duck football. So that's going to be coming up on Saturday at Autzen Stadium. We're going to be breaking that down with none other than Joey Mack from the Oregon Sports Network. He's on the call for this, right? He's doing the radio broadcast?
Yeah, as far as I know, he will be doing the call this weekend, different circumstances, and so it looks like Joey's going to be doing play-by-play this weekend. There's a lot going on. You got Oregon baseball happening on Saturday as well, so that game's going on at 4 o'clock, and so a little bit of shifting of duties all around, and so it looks like Joey's going to be on play-by-play for the spring football game on Saturday.
Looking forward to that. There's going to be a lot of new names to find out about. One specifically I'm sure that folks would love to see plenty of. Dante Moore, the new quarterback. He's been kind of in the wings waiting. We'll see if we get much of a look of him coming up in the spring game, but also plenty of other places to start to get to know some of the new faces for the Oregon Ducks. Oregon State had their spring football game last weekend up at Research Stadium, and we're going to be heading to Corvallis to talk with Ryan Harlan from BeaversEdge.com. Get a chance to find out what happened with the Oregon State Beavers spring game, get a recap there, and find out what to expect. Oregon State, the university continues to be in that tough spot where they're not currently in a conference. They are not necessarily going to be big spenders when it comes to NIL. I think we're seeing it a lot with some of their kind of outer lying sports, but football does get some attention, so they're going to hopefully be able to put together something that is competitive out there on the field today, but it continues to be this kind of floating no man's land kind of spot for Oregon State right now, where they're trying to figure out their future. And second year for Trent Bray out there. I mean, there should be a lot of reasons for excitement to try and figure out what's coming up for the Beavers, but we'll see what Ryan Harlan had to think about what they saw on Saturday.
It's certainly unique because it feels like this offseason has definitely been a little bit more stable compared to last offseason because you had the coaching changes and because of the conference realignment. It feels like this year it feels a little bit more firm than it was a year ago. But at the same time, like, there's still a lot up in the air. The state of the Pac-12 has yet to be determined. They still need to add another team to the conference by the end of this year. But you know, right now you're having the pluses and minuses. It seemed like it was a moderately successful season for the Beavers in the WCC in terms of men's basketball and women's basketball. Baseball right now, they're an independent and they're having a heck of a season.
Year.
So, you know, there is some good news about what's happened with Oregon State. The tough side is that you're seeing it, like you said, with the underlying sports outside of football, and you're also seeing it with football as well. But, you know, a lot of the basketball players, a lot of the men's basketball players that had a really good season, they're leaving. And, you know, that's just kind of where things are at in Corvallis. But, you know, with Trent Bray there, it feels a little bit more stable. It feels like there's a lot more momentum going Oregon State's way. It felt like, you know, last year it was everything going towards Washington State between those two programs. Oregon State and Washington State, where was the momentum going between those two final Pac-12 teams that got left behind? And after a year, you know, it felt like Wazoo was the more stable place. Now it feels like Corvallis is the more stable place compared to those two universities.
Definitely intrigued to hear what Ryan has to say about the new quarterback, Malik Murphy, there that transfers in. A lot of high expectations for him, but do they have the pieces around him to be able to put together a winning football team this year in Corvallis? We'll be checking in with Ryan Harlan from BeaversEdge.com to find out more about that. That's going to be coming up at 12:45. We've got Joey Mack coming up at 12:15 to talk Ducks with us. Also today, we're going to talk about the NFL draft. Got started yesterday, round one. You heard in the open there. It was the commissioner announcing the number one overall pick for my Tennessee Titans. We sucked last year, so we got Cam Ward.
You don't sound thrilled.
It was not the pick. I mean, if we're going to stay at number one, I guess I get it. You know, and look, I might be down on him a little bit. Maybe I'm hedging my bets. I don't know. But we'll see. I think he's got a ceiling that could be great. You know, could be a really good quarterback in the NFL. Would I have liked to have seen the Titans trade out of the number one pick, take the edge rusher Abdul Carter? Yeah, I would have liked to have seen that. You might have had to make some things work, get the right trade partner there. But I would have liked to see the Titans maybe try to add more opportunities to get more pieces together, and then maybe try to take a quarterback next year in a quarterback draft that's probably going to be deeper than it is this year. But if you're going to take a quarterback this year and you're going to take one in the first round, they got the number one guy, so we'll see how that works out. We'll dive into the NFL draft. My Titans, number one pick. Ashton Jeanty has been a name we've talked about a lot on this program,
sir.
Heading to Knights, Las Vegas Raiders.
Yep.
So we got a lot to break down from the first round of the NFL draft. You got to watch some of what I want to know right now before we kind of break into the picks later on in the show, but I was doing baseball broadcasting yesterday, so I was unable to watch the NFL draft. Did you get to watch some of it, and what'd you think of the setting in Lambeau Field, or in Green Bay?
I mean, I only got to watch really towards the end of the draft because the first part of the draft I was on air doing the news, and then
dang, other responsibilities.
I know, crazy, right? And then I drove over to Champion Car Wash Field, and as I was pulling in to park, which, by the way, it was so hard to find a parking spot yesterday. Really great turnout yesterday for the UCC baseball game, obviously. The ceremony for the UCC softball team and the tragedy that struck last week. Great to see the community come out and support that program. Really emotional day. But as I'm pulling in, the Raiders draft Ashton Jeanty, and I got to watch them make that announcement. Literally turned it on my phone right as they were making the pick. heard the pick, called my dad. We were both fired up, and then I walked inside and then hung out at the baseball stadium until after the moment of silence. And then I came home, watched about like the final 8 picks in the NFL draft. The scene looked incredible. Like there were so many people at Lambeau Field. Like it was shocking to see because Lambeau's like 100,000, 115,000 people. It's somewhere up in that range. I know you're looking it up right now.
Yeah, I'll
but
tell you.
I don't think that like Green Bay is like that big of a city.
I mean, the community's not, but I know that on game days up there, it
no
doubles
doubt.
the population.
No doubt, but that's like, I mean, it's the same thing as like State College, Pennsylvania. State College is like 35,000 people, but then you get over 100,000 people there for a Penn State football game. I think like Packer games are the same way. Going to Lambeau and going to Green Bay, it kind of is that college town atmosphere, but it's more of like an NFL. It's title town. That's really what it is. And incredible turnout for the fans there.
81,441 is the listed capacity of Lambeau Field in Green Bay.
But it wasn't at the stadium. It was outside.
Was it? Okay.
So that was
I was just looking. We've got the TV on in the sports den here, and they've got ESPN's draft coverage stuff going on, and I was trying to get a view of kind of what the setup was like for the draft here.
According to sources, they're saying that 250,000 fans were at the game.
Name
yesterday.
your sources.
Google. WLUK, Fox 11 News.
Google. So according to sources, Google.
Okay.
So how many people? 25,000?
250,000.
Oh, geez. I was a little off there.
Yeah, maybe I said 25,000, but so that over 200,000 fans.
Yeah, here's I Googled Lambeau, to look up the capacity, and here's plenty of headlines saying 25,000. Or excuse me, 205,000.
Okay, so that what you're seeing?
My experience joining the 205,000 NFL fans for the draft.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. That's what one headline says. Here's another one. NFL draft reaches capacity with 125,000 plus in attendance. So
there was tens of thousands of fans in attendance.
So apparently, we're anywhere from like 100,000 to 200,000. Who knows? But nonetheless, packed house there in Green Bay.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is that like you look at Green Bay and you think, okay, maybe it's going to get a pretty good turnout. Fans obviously flock to Green Bay a lot for Packer games. But after last season in Detroit, like that was just a packed draft. That was the most packed draft they've ever had. And they didn't think they were going to have as big of a turnout.
It's just
it's incredible.
I don't know. Yeah, and the weather does look like it's turned a little wet there, according to what I've seen on the TV here. Yeah. But it's incredible how big the NFL draft is. I've been to a draft in New York, and it was big. I mean, there was a lot of people there, but it wasn't hundreds of thousands of people. And
you couldn't fit that in Radio City Music
No, you
Hall.
couldn't when I got to go back in 12 years ago, I think it was now. So, it was, it was hustling. I mean, it was New York City, though, so it felt like everything was going on.
12 years ago. So 2013, was that the tackle, like first overall pick?
I remember that Dion Jordan went to the Dolphins, I think, with the third overall pick, I think is what I remember.
Was it the tackle from Central Michigan that went number 1 overall to the Chiefs? You know who I'm talking about?
No. Let's see here. 2013 NFL Draft.
I don't know his name.
Eric Fisher?
Eric
He went to Kansas City from Central Michigan. Look at you.
There you go. Yep, Eric Fisher.
He's got one reception for -3 yards.
Well, he was a tackle. Like, of course he.
Wait, what? He's got one receiving touchdown and one reception for -3 yards.
How does that work?
What in the world?
I don't know.
Uh-huh. Yeah, but yes, that is the correct answer to that trivia question. And look at that, Dion Jordan to Miami, 3rd overall.
There you go.
Yeah, weren't counting on this brand, were you?
Yeah, I mean, you remember the Oregon player.
Yes,
that's the big thing.
Yeah, and
that was just like, it wasn't like necessarily the greatest draft. In fact, actually, earlier this week, I saw a tweet where they talked about this draft, like the 2013 draft, like the top 10 picks were brutal.
Yeah, I mean, Dion Jordan did not end up doing much.
Luke Joeckel was number 2. Dion Jordan, Lane Johnson, he was actually pretty solid. Zeke Ansah had some seasons. Barkevius Mingo, Jonathan Cooper, Tavon Austin, D. Milner, Chance Warmack. Like, gosh, really, really tough.
Yeah,
top 10 in that draft.
Yeah, not a lot of notable names that you're really like remembering throughout their careers. So yeah, kind of interesting there. But that's the one I went to, and yeah, it is just it's amazing how much it's grown. My brother-in-law actually went to the Detroit one last year, and he had a blast. He's in Wisconsin. He said he just couldn't quite make it work to get to Green Bay this time around for the draft. So we need to get to Joey Mack. I should give him a call here, but we've got the chat. It would be great if people would chime in and hit us up on the chat here on the YouTube channel. Let us know your thoughts on the NFL draft, as well as you could chime in on the Ducks and the Beavers and spring game, and what are you looking forward to when it comes to this upcoming season in college football, because, there's a lot of excitement stuff going on.
Yeah, and we really appreciate when you do comment and give us stuff to talk about. You know, we're just a couple of guys talking in here. We're going to have Joey on in a second, obviously.
I'm going to dial him up right now. Here,
we're
just going to put him right on the air, because why screw around with anything? Let's see here. I mean, we're not on radio, so we can just do whatever we want here.
That's the flexibility, you know.
Let's see if I dialed the right number.
We're sorry. Your long-distance carrier.
Long-distance carrier.
See, that's the tough thing, is that sometimes you need to put in the one in the phone number when you type it in, and sometimes you don't.
I should have known the Eugene guy. I probably needed to do that. Let's see if we get Joey here. So we're going to be talking some Oregon Duck football here on the spring game, dialing up the one and only Joey Mack. If he answers the phone, the suspense is killing me.
I remember in the fall we had him on it. Oh?
Why does it look like he picked up, but it's still ringing? Oh, man.
Trying to connect.
Oh, man.
Well, I remember in the fall we tried to call him, and
like his phone was sending us right to his voicemail
or something.
Yeah.
And then he called.
Oh, yeah. He said that it was listed as probable spam. Well, this isn't working out the way it was supposed to.
Well, you know, it's one of those things. He also
No.
He's also like you and has two phones.
Oh.
So then maybe that's like an added element to it.
Okay. He's got the side chick. The side chick phone. That's what everybody always assumes. You either deal drugs or you got a mistress on the side. No, my mistress is work, and that's why I have two phones. I just work way too much. All right, so it looks like Joey Mack's we're not getting him there. We'll try to dial him up. But as you look at Oregon football, you know, obviously we're going to get more details about what to expect coming up tomorrow for the Oregon Ducks. But going into it, what's one of the things you're going to be there tomorrow for the spring game. What's something that you're looking forward to seeing as you get a chance to see the team out there in a situation where it looks like they're going to probably be, you know, almost doing things that resemble real football?
You know, I think, you know, naturally every Oregon fan every year, especially going into the spring game, you're really focused on the quarterback play, especially when you have a new quarterback entering into the season next year. Because last year you had Dylan Gabriel. It was his first year. You got to watch him in the spring game a little bit, see what he was all about. Got to see a little bit from Dante Moore last year, but again, he had just transferred into the University of Oregon then. And so for me, I kind of want to see what Dante Moore looks like a year afterwards. You know, he's been in the system for a year. How much has he developed? How much has Austin Novosad developed? Because, you know, people have been talking a lot about Novosad and, you know, the ability that he has to really throw the deep ball. And so I'm really curious to see the quarterback play. I'm also curious to see DeCorian Moore, you know, top overall recruit that Oregon had. He seems to be flashing some eyes, and you know, it seems like, you know, he might be a big time piece for Oregon in the fall. And so I'm very curious to see what he looks like, what he translates to on a college field compared to the high school field. Because looking at the tape, like, he looks incredible. But now, like, I want to see what he kind of looks like on the college field.
Yeah, and we've been hearing some, talk about him during fall or spring camp here going on right now. We don't get a ton of access into practices to see what's going on and getting a chance to see these guys going through drills, going through one-on-ones, and getting to watch them run routes and going through their football maneuvers. And so we don't get the opportunity to see a lot of these guys through this spring camp, and here is our chance to finally do it. And what I've been hearing, been reading, trying to keep up with some of the headlines, is that he has been turning some heads out there, that he's going to be a legit guy out there. And so that should be a lot of fun to see what he brings to that wide receiver core.
And the other thing, too, is that, like, you think about Oregon last season, phenomenal season. They get to the Rose Bowl, and they run into a bull, and his name is Jeremiah Smith. Like, that guy is incredible. And, he turned heads as a freshman. He was able to make a big-time impact for Ohio State and really was a big reason why they won the national championship. Now, Oregon, this is their counterpunch. They got their guy. They got their number 1 overall wide receiver. It wasn't easy. That's a tough recruitment to lock down, but they got him to Eugene, and all signs point to him making an impact day one. And, it's kind of funny because you think about the way that the NFL is going right now, where they're kind of transitioning back towards running backs and like the running back position is becoming very valuable again. It feels like in college football, like that number 1 wide receiver, that's becoming very, very important right now in college football. And it feels like Oregon, the way that they've stacked up their recruiting classes with the receivers that got last year in the freshman class and how they got to sit behind some experienced wide receivers in a year. You got Evan Stewart coming back, but those younger guys learning from Tez Johnson for a year, it's really special what Oregon's building in the wide receiver core, and it's really awesome to get an addition like the Corian Moore who can really turn the game upside down.
I did see a headline here recently that Will Stein, offensive coordinator, talking about how last year the run game didn't quite get to where they wanted it to be, and that they've tinkered with things here in the offseason, as you would expect, and kind of redesigned some things and tried to find ways to feature that a little bit more. We know that Oregon has always been an explosive type of offense, but they always seem to be kind of at their best when they have the ability to mix and match between the run and the pass game, and when they've got that ability to really rely on the guys out of the backfield. And so that's one of the things I'd like to see as well is maybe, they're not going to put everything on tape because people are going to be watching this. They're going to be studying this.
Will Stein, I think he said the word was vanilla.
And
I think every single spring, every offense is like, it's going to be pretty vanilla.
Yeah, exactly. They're not going to be showing a lot, but it will be interesting to see how that maybe if there's anything new that you can kind of parse from what we see in this spring game when it comes to the run game and what they're able to do there. I think I saw a headline here recently as well that Kenyon Sadiq, I assume that's who they were talking about, that one of the he's one of the best athletes in the country.
Yeah.
And that was the talk from coaches in camp, and so that could be one to also watch. Now, you heard a little bit of a clip from head coach Trent Bray for Oregon State in the opening that we had. I listened to some of his, and he talked about how some of their kind of guys that you are looking forward to seeing this year for Oregon State didn't play in any of the spring game stuff because those aren't guys they need to see tape on. They need to see the young guys. So maybe we don't see much of Kenyon Sadiq. I'm interested to see what Oregon does. Spring games in general, as we do, we were hoping to have Joey Mack at this point in time, so we might get off topic a little bit here, but and hoping that Joey will get in touch with us. We've reached out. We're efforting, as Dan Patrick likes to say. But spring games in general have taken a bit of a shift. We've seen some schools, they're eliminating the kind of final. Spring games are practices. You get an allotment of practices in the spring. You get that many. That's all you get. And it used to be that the final practice was always the spring game. You invite in the fans. You do something that resembles real football, and you get an opportunity to kind of showcase your team going into the true offseason, which is the dead of summer, to try and get some buzz about your team so that people buy tickets going into the next season. Well, now with the ability for players to transfer, you've got guys that maybe go into a spring game and they look really good. And a bigger program says, we'd like that guy on our team. Let's throw some cash at him, and he transfers. Or a guy that goes into the spring game and doesn't get to get featured, and he says, I'm out of here. I want to go somewhere else. So spring practices have definitely changed in the tenor of what they are. And you're starting to see some schools say, we don't want to put stuff out there that lures somebody in to take our best players because they liked what they saw in the spring game. It's a damn shame.
It is. And it's so weird because different teams are coming up with different ways to try to combat that. Like Oregon State, they were very fearful that some of their players would be poached.
And see, they're a program that you would think needs to worry about that.
Yeah, and they're one of those programs, and what they did is they made it so that their spring game, was not televised. The only way that you could view the game is you were there at the stadium. That's the only record they have. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm sure there's students and members of the team there filming, and helping them out. But at the same time, that's very unique. I don't know. Did you see what North Carolina did with Bill Belichick?
No, I did not.
So what they did is to prevent people from recognizing their players, every player did not have a number. They just made everybody numberless. So that if you were watching the game...
Was there any identifying markers on anyone?
No.
So how do they go back and watch tape and know who did? I guess they just know who's in what positions.
Yeah, they must have just had to know. You just had to be there, and you just had to know which players were supposed to be in the right spots at the right moment. Maybe that's one of those things that you go back to the film room and you're like, can you imagine Bill Belichick getting out there in front of the team and be like, "All right, guys, who's lined up right here? Who remembers this play?"
All right, here's the second play. Anybody remember who's playing left tackle? We need to evaluate you. You sucked on this play.
Maybe it's one of those things where you have to really analyze the cleats.
It says, okay, on this play, the left tackle you could see here just got absolutely smoked on this play.
Who is it?
Who is it? Anybody? Who is this? Nope, not me, coach. Wasn't me. That's. I mean, obviously, it's one way of trying to avoid people digging into learning more about your team. But I just wonder, how do you truly evaluate things? How much do they? I guess in this day and age, with how much support staff you have for a college football team, you probably had some student manager guy that was sitting there tracking, okay, I know these are the guys that are out there going out for this next play and writing it all down and making notes of all of that. So there we go. It'll be interesting. Joey just reached out to me, and he said his phone isn't ringing. He thought maybe we just canceled on him. I asked him to call us. We'll see if he calls us in here. But,
okay.
But it is interesting to see. And so what I'm kind of curious about, bringing it all back here, is I'm curious to see, because Oregon's going to be on the Big Ten, probably Big Ten Network or Big Ten Plus. I know Yogi Roth has tweeted about coming in to broadcast the game.
Yeah.
So
it's going to be on the Big Ten Network. It's going to be really, really quick, based on my understanding. It looks like there's only going to be 4 televised breaks. So
okay.
And
it's probably going to move
be
quick.
Really, really quick. The other thing is that they have the Oregon versus Oregon State baseball game happening at 4. The spring game's at 1.
Mm-hmm.
Gates open for baseball at 2:30, and so I think they're trying to funnel people out by that 2:30, 3 o'clock mark, so that they could potentially get over to PK Park.
So we're going to try and dial up Joey again here and see if we can get him, and see if we can make this work for everybody involved. Let's see here. Probably shouldn't say his phone number on the interwebs. Joey Mack doesn't need everybody ringing him up. Let's see if this goes through this time. I told him we'd try calling again. That we're probably getting flagged as spam on his phone.
Again?
Yeah, probably. He said it wasn't ringing. He probably got it set up. Unknown numbers just get flagged as spam. Now it's not even dialing out. Our phone system sometimes. We got a comment on the stream. Do we have any new coaches at Oregon that will make an impact, and do we lose any coaches that we needed to keep? Good question for Joey. I'm trying to remember if there's been any coaching changes this year. This point of the season, I am so rusty when it comes to keeping up on some of this stuff. Joey Mack might be able to help us out here.
Gentlemen, that worked.
Hey, we got him.
What did you do that time?
I don't know. Quit marking us as potential spam and blocking our calls.
I'm telling you, I was sitting there going, well, maybe they canceled on me. I guess they.
No.
I don't know what happened. What's going on?
We couldn't do
that.
that.
I get this text, and I'm going, oh, okay. So whatever you did, it worked that time. How are things in Roseburg, boys? How are you?
We are cruising right along here down in the Umpqua Basin and having a good time. It feels a bit like fall outside, so it's a great time to talk some football and a great time to have you on to tell us what the heck's going on up in Eugene. So appreciate you joining us.
Boy, it's always fun to catch up with you guys, and it's going to be fun, I think, over the next few days. It does feel a little bit like fall, I'll be honest with you, but that means that everyone won't get too sunburned when they're at Austin Stadium tomorrow.
That's a plus.
Baseball tonight, there's a lot going on, and it makes for a fun environment, guys. And believe me, it is not lost on me that as programs are canceling spring games around the country, Oregon's got one of the best spring game environments around. And if you don't think that's a recruiting advantage, let me tell you, it's a huge recruiting advantage. That's why Coach Lanning, I think it's part of why Coach Lanning has said we want a game day environment, because it makes a difference. And it's fun for the program, it's fun for the fans, and it's fun for the broadcaster, that's for sure.
Well, that was a topic we were just talking about while we were trying to dial you up here, is just about how kind of the tenor around spring games has changed. Is there anything that you can maybe give us that we might see that might look a little different for Oregon spring football, the spring game this year than maybe it has in years past? Are they doing anything different in this new kind of day and age of college football to try and protect themselves from what everybody is fearing and then therefore changing or canceling their spring games?
Well, to be honest with you, not really. It's going to be the same game format as last year. It's still going to be honoring and appreciating our armed servicemen and women in the military. There will be a lot of activations around Autzen Stadium. Honestly, everything is pretty much going to be the same. I think in the transfer portal era and just the way that things are in the spring, Coach Lanning has never really done like the true 1, 2, 3 on the depth chart. They've always kind of done the mix and matching of green and yellow, as they call it. And I think that as a result, maybe that makes him feel a lot better about having these games and kind of having everyone get a chance to see. And, here's the thing, guys. Like Will Stein, Oregon offensive coordinator, said this week. He goes, look, you're not going to see anything that we haven't already done offensively, right? Like the goal of a spring game is to celebrate a program. Yes, it's a day for evaluation. And as, again, Will Stein put it, it shouldn't matter that there's people in the stands, but it does matter that people are in the stands when players are competing on the field. So, yes, it is just another day of evaluation, but I don't think anything is really different. This is kind of the same vibe that they've had since Coach Lanning got here in terms of how they operate on a spring game Saturday. I don't anticipate any changes.
Hey, I will say this on the point you just made there, that you're probably going to see a lot of guys that are getting maybe their first game-like atmosphere in Autzen Stadium. And so this is a good kind of break the ice maybe type of moment, because we know Oregon fans will show up. I was actually talking with a student athlete yesterday for UCC, and he was talking about how the first time he went in front of a crowd that was bigger than playing in high school, the nerves kicked in. And so this could be that nice icebreaker moment coming up this weekend for some of those guys.
That's a good point, especially with a lot of freshmen that have enrolled early. I mean, that's one thing I think that's exciting for everybody, is you get to see some of these guys instead of maybe waiting until the fall or even waiting a year with a redshirt or something like that. There's so much excitement around recruiting. A lot of guys that committed in December and then in February, you're going to see some of them here coming up on Saturday. I think that's a great point that you just made. It does make a difference. I mean, and guys, as I'm talking to you, we've even got one that would love to talk about it. Bryce Betcher walking by.
Whoa!
Right now.
Hey, we know Bryce.
Betch is nodding in approval right now.
He's a Roseburg guy.
The field. Yeah, exactly. So that's, here's what I'm getting at. Like, I think that you're right. There is an icebreaker moment to it, and I think that is it's something that, I think about, because you never know what those butterflies are going to be like. And certainly a fall Saturday maybe feels a little different, but I'll bet you that is a big factor in it for sure.
You mentioned the early enrollees. Who are some of those early enrollees that fans should be look out for on Saturday? And who's kind of stood out to you in the spring practices?
Well, a lot of them, but I think that the number 1 wide receiver recruit and the number 3 overall recruit, let's just say he sure looks the part heading into this one. DeCorian Moore wearing number 1 as a wide receiver. Right now he looks like the real deal. I think fans will be excited to see what he can do. And then as the Oregon secondary is now filled with a bunch of talented yet not as experienced guys. Last year's secondary was just littered with experienced dudes. This year it's a young and dangerous group, as Tosh Lupoy, the Duck defensive coordinator, put it. And guys like Trey McNutt, Naeem Offord, I think might jump out to some fans just because you'll see them matching up with, again, guys like DeCorian Moore. And there's a number of others, but I feel like in the spring game, you tend to gravitate toward those playmaking positions, right? That's kind of what fans want to look for. And I'll tell you, I think DeCorian Moore is the real deal. I think those 2 young DBs are the real deal. And, the list goes on, but I think everyone got to get excited about a receiver, right?
No doubt. You definitely get excited with the skill players. You mentioned Naeem Offord. What about his brother, Mekhi Hughes? He transfers over. How does the running back group kind of look this year?
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up. I mean, Rashad Samples has said that the Duck running back coach, that it's the deepest group. He kind of made a joke even earlier in the spring, like, hey, we're going to have to find a way to play with 2 footballs. I mean, they do have a lot of talent in that room. And really, it's funny, like we talk about Hughes, you talk about some of the younger guys that have been developing like a DeJuan Dink Riggs, and next thing you know, Noah Whittington is still on the roster, right? Like Noah Whittington is so much of a known commodity. I'm excited to see what he does now in a really, truly, fully healthy season. And you mentioned Hughes there, Knight, and I feel like too, like Jay Harris even, like that's a guy who didn't play as much last year as maybe some people thought, but then he's been solid for the Ducks. He's in the program for another year. And by the way, Jaden Lamar showed some real bursts at times last year, didn't he? He's still in the room. I mean, I think that the running back group is just exceptionally deep, and the era of the one running back for every down and sort of that, for lack of a better phrase, bell cow, that's just not a thing anymore. The Ducks are going to rotate guys, and we've seen that in Will Stein's offense, how effective it can be. I think that's going to be the case this year, and I think you'll see that in the spring game. You see a lot of different guys touch the ball from the backfield.
We are talking with Joey Mack from the Oregon Sports Network. You're going to be doing the call for the game coming up on Saturday on the radio broadcast?
I am, yeah. Jerry's a little under the weather. Nothing to be concerned about for fans. But when you hear my voice instead of the sweet, sweet sounds of Jerry Allen, that's why. That's why you'll hear my voice along with Jorgie, yes.
You made me think of anytime I tune in for a Cubs baseball game and it's not Pat Hughes on there, I start to wonder, and they always address it like 3 times during the broadcast. Don't worry, everybody. Pat is just taking time off for this, or he's doing the TV broadcast. Don't worry, Pat's okay. So don't worry, fans. Yep. Jerry will be okay. Don't worry about him. He'll be back. Good to know. We all love Jerry, that is for sure. So you'll hear him on the radio broadcast of the Oregon Ducks spring game. We had a listener, someone from the audience, ask about the coaching staff. Honestly, the reason we have you on is because I have not been locked into this nearly as much as I would like to be. There's so many other things that go on in the world of sports. So have we seen much of a change? I was just looking through the roster. It seems like a lot of familiar names on there, but every offseason kind of brings some shuffling of the deck sometimes with the coaching staff. What's been going on with Coach Lanning?
I mean, to that point, if you're having success, people are going to want to hire your assistant coaches. And the Ducks have a wide receivers coach in Junior Adams, who's now going to be the wide receivers coach for the Dallas Cowboys. That's a pretty big deal, right? And if I'm Junior Adams and I get that phone call, I think I go, yeah, okay, I get it. And so Ross Douglas is joining the staff this year, has been here now for a few months as a wide receivers coach. He actually goes back a bit with Rashad Samples. There's some connections on the staff already. He goes back actually with a few other guys in addition to Coach Samples. And Ross Douglas seems to have fit in and really hit the ground running. So that's really the one change. A few other support staff changes, but in terms of the guys that go out and do the recruiting, the 10 assistant coaches that can go do the recruiting, that's the change. And, so far, the reviews have been positive. It's been fun getting to know Coach Douglas.
Well, that's good to know that a lot of stability, but like you said, there's always a little bit of change when you are a team that is doing things well, and people want a piece of that. Going into it, we've talked kind of about how things change with spring, or are changing with spring games, but it seems like every year it kind of depends on maybe how healthy a team feels going into a spring game, or how many guys they want to put out there as to what the format might look like. Are we going to get something that resembles close to real football out there coming up tomorrow?
It will resemble close to real football. You might see a punt get skipped every now and then. The Ducks have said that they will scrimmage it. In a lot of their scrimmages this year, they've done tackling, but have also done some thud mode. So, you might not see as many tackles to the ground as a game in the fall, but you'll still see something that resembles real football. It'll mostly be a running clock, 12-minute halftime. There'll be stoppages on the clock, for example, like at the end of quarters and last 3 minutes of quarters, they're going to stop the clock, but mostly a running clock. And part of it is to keep it into a tight window, keep the snap count where the Ducks want it to be. And then, honestly, from an overall department perspective, guys, there's a pretty big baseball game at 4 o'clock on Saturday following the spring game. So a lot going on, to say the least.
Definitely.
You mentioned a lot going on. Just kind of what should fans know? How should they plan their day in Eugene? Obviously, there's going to be the spring game, obviously the big baseball game, but there's probably also stuff happening beforehand. Just what's all going on in Eugene, and what should fans know?
So 10 a.m. is when the parking lots open. If you didn't get a parking pass ahead of time, I'm sorry to tell you that they are sold out, but the shuttles are going to continue to run from Valley River Center. You can also park on campus and walk across the river, as is often tradition, especially for freshmen. If you want to go down the nostalgic trail, you can do that. And there will be a fan fest going on. Food trucks will be out, and again, with honoring the military, something that's become now really a true tradition for Oregon's spring game. There will be a ton of different activations, and I mean equipment. And I don't know about you guys, but I was the kid that went to the air show and went to the Armed Forces museums, and I loved it. That's basically what's going to happen around Autzen Stadium. Weather dependent, there's going to be a flyover after the national anthem to just really bring home that theme of honoring the military. So that'll all be going on around Autzen Stadium, all kinds of activations with the military and food trucks, the usual tailgating scene, and then, baseball at 4 o'clock. So it is really a full day. In fact, I'm talking to you guys actually from the field at Autzen Stadium right now, because we actually have one of our broadcast coordinators is in town. He's never been to Autzen Stadium before. And I was actually giving him the walking tour after talking to you guys. So I actually walked down to the field. That was when I saw Betch, and he's out on the field right now. And so just to give you guys some perspective, he brought his 2 boys with him that are young, and the smiles on their faces getting to see Autzen Stadium, pretty special. So I'm reminded as you asked that question, what's a full day look like? It's a full day for everybody, let me tell you.
Yeah, it definitely is. Talking with Joey Mack here, got to probably start wrapping it up because we got more football to talk here on the program. But, one thing I wanted to – we saw first round of the NFL draft yesterday. Oregon Ducks keep the streak alive. 6 straight seasons they get someone selected in that first round, and it was a couple of guys from down in the trenches, offense, defense. So, obviously, departures down in those position groups. Great to see 2 guys drafted, but that means you got to fill positions. I don't know if we've really touched much on the guys down in the trenches that a lot of times get overlooked. Any kind of names to watch or situations down in the trenches that folks might want to try to pay attention to a little bit coming up tomorrow?
Well, I think that the defensive line in general is still a very, very talented group, but more so than the secondary, there's some familiar names that did see time. For example, last year, Amari Washington comes to mind, just as a guy who's kind of continued to develop and is now figuring to be in a bigger role. And then there's a number 1 on the defensive front again. It's just not Jordan Birch. It's Bear Alexander transferring from USC. Tell you what, he sure fills up the number 1 jersey. I'll put it that way, guys. He is a force to be reckoned with on the D-line. on the offensive line, I anticipate a rotation that fans will see in the spring game. Coach Terry's big on rotating guys in different positions just to get the best 5 on the field come fall. And really the spring is the time to do that. But Isaiah World is another one of those JC transfers that, similar to a Johnny Cor, sure seems to look the part. And, he's hoping that he gets that call like Josh Connerly did last night in the first round. And he's a delightful human being, let me tell you. So I'm looking forward to rooting for him just as a good person. And then to take one more step maybe in Alex Harkey, he's been, I think, one of the guys that fans get excited about, another transfer on the O-line. And then truthfully, the offensive line is a group that like we were talking about before, that has so much depth. And you don't often see guys start as true freshmen or even necessarily redshirt freshmen. It's often kind of that redshirt sophomore year. And there's some names that you're going to see pop up in that rotation on that side that have now been in the program a couple years, have worked on the strength and conditioning, and now you're going to see them in bigger rotation roles. But certainly having your starting center back helps. I think Pancho Lalulu is an anchor in the middle now, and that certainly helps in any season when you have your center back.
Well, it's definitely going to be fun to see how things play out coming up tomorrow. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to getting to know this year's Duck squad, and hoping that we see some more great things up there in Eugene for the Oregon Ducks. Joey Mack from the Oregon Sports Network joining us. Looking forward to hearing you on the call tomorrow, and have a good one up there. Thanks for stealing my partner in crime to help you up there as well. So,
Hey, well, thanks to your partner in crime for being willing to come in and assist. Always great to catch up with you guys. Be well down there.
All right, Joey. Appreciate it, man. Have a good one tomorrow there. Joey Mack joining us here on the on our spring special here on the YouTube stream, doing this here. We are going to dial up our next guest here on the program. It's going to be Ryan Harlan. I don't think you sent me his phone number, though.
It's in the document right now.
Oh, perfect. Okay, I can go there and
local
pull
show
that
rundowns. Yeah, I tried to put it there. Typically,
that
we
makes
did
sense. That makes sense. Yeah,
we did that in the fall, and I thought it worked, and so I put it there. And
I can make that work.
Apparently, you didn't look there.
Which would
have been the logical place to look.
I did. I thought you said you were going to send it to me. So.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Could have done that. That could have been also an easier option.
Yeah, I mean, that would have been good, but, we'll take it as we go. All right, so we are dialing up. That was Joey Mack talking Ducks football with us for the spring game coming up tomorrow for the Oregon Ducks. Now we are going to be calling up to Corvallis. We're keeping things rolling here. We're going a good pace here. No commercial breaks to get to, so we are just rolling right through on some of this here. Want to recap what happened last week in the Oregon State spring game and find out kind of what we saw from that. I didn't get, like Knight said, you had to be there to see it. Mm-hmm. And, I wasn't there. So now it's time to get the firsthand knowledge of
I was at
what
South
happened.
Eugene High School, and I was calling some games. And
I was probably in my pajamas at the house just lounging around on a Saturday.
Enjoying the day off.
I was trying to. We'll look forward to talk to Ryan Harlan. He's been a guest on the radio with us before, talking Beavers and giving us insight into what's going on. And he writes for BeaversEdge.com. I'm waiting for the phone line to actually start dialing for some reason. I punched in all the numbers, but it's just sitting here doing nothing.
Sometimes it just rolls and rolls and rolls and rolls.
Just sitting here doing nothing. It's like it's just waiting for a free line to call out. I mean, this is the digital age. This shouldn't be that hard. Yeah. But for some reason, it's process...
It's just frozen in time, like Linus Ulmark last night of the Ottawa Senators. How about my Toronto Maple Leafs?
Yeah. Dynamite.
In overtime yesterday, if you're not a hockey fan, yesterday, the Toronto Maple Leafs, slap shot from the sixth defenseman for the Leafs, French guy Simone Benoit, rocketed it in. He's rarely scored a goal in his life. In fact, his best quote was, "I can't score the goals, but I can hit the bodies." And he scored a goal yesterday. The goalie for Ottawa, frozen.
Hey, look at that. Oh, hey, somebody picked up right away.
Yeah.
Hey, is this Ryan?
Yeah.
Hey, Ryan. Hey, how's it going,
Let's
bud?
go.
We just dialing you up here. We're just trying to get our phone system to actually make connections with actually do what a phone system should do, which is actually dial people up. So, all right, let's introduce him. Joining us here on the program to talk about the Oregon State football team, it is Ryan Harlan from BeaversEdge.com. How's it going, bud?
Hey, It's going good. Appreciate you guys having me on again. I was telling Knight earlier this week that I've been dealing with a little bit of concussion symptoms from a concert I was at, but we're doing much better now than we were at the start of the week. So, can't complain too much.
I thought you were talking about the couple of snaps you took at spring game last week. You're dealing. Well, we're glad you're all right.
Those, yeah.
Well, hopefully everything good then on that front, and glad to hear that you're all right, and glad that you're able to join us here. We've been talking about spring games. We just we're talking previewing Oregon spring game coming up this weekend. Beavers were last weekend, and Knight tells me that if you weren't there, you didn't get a chance to see it like online or on a TV, some broadcast somewhere. So you're going to be our first-hand knowledge of what exactly to take away from what the Beavers were able to accomplish. Obviously, every offseason brings a lot of changes with what a program has in this day and era of college football. First and foremost, just what did they put out on the field? Were they doing football-like activities, or was it more of just kind of a glorified practice?
It was kind of more of the latter to a degree, but still somewhat in a game format, much more than what it's been in years past. And immediately, like the first play of the spring game for the Beavers was a deep shot down the field from Malik Murphy to Darius Clemens. So they're really emphasizing the vertical passing game a lot, which was something that was sorely missed by far this past season with the Beavers, and kind of an inkling of what a fun offense under Ryan Gunderson will look like. At least I remember him saying that last spring, where he was like just trying to describe what he brings offensively as a coordinator. It's like, oh, very fun offense, but we never really saw a lot of that to begin with. So, but now it looks like now that he has his guy back there, and they're able to really emphasize more of those explosive plays that they missed on a lot this past season.
You mentioned him having his guy back there. Malik Murphy obviously transfers in, a big addition. How did he look in his first action in the orange and black?
Well, Malik Murphy's looked great. Like, he looks pretty comfortable back there in the pocket, going through progressions, going through plays, of like understanding where guys are on the field, and a lot of communication as well too, along the sideline with Coach Langsdorff, Ryan Gunderson, all the receivers, tight ends, basically very much being a very active leader along that sideline. Like, if he missed like Darius Clemens or Trent Walker, he'd go up to them and be like, hey, my bad, like, what did you see on that play? Communicate through on that, develop that chemistry, which was something that was very, very much missed a lot. And I know that first play, I know Malik really wanted to hit Darius in stride there, but wasn't able to. Just a little too much power on that throw. But he ended up getting a touchdown to Cooper Jensen on a broken coverage from the defense. So a very, very good performance from him, and I think he'll only get better over time as he develops more of that timing, chemistry, and hitting both his tight ends and receivers and running backs out of the backfield. Just developing that more will be very crucial, I think, to this season and what Malik can bring in elevating this offense.
Talking with Ryan Harlan here from BeaversEdge.com. Some of the stuff I kind of read about the Oregon State spring game talked about, getting a chance to see maybe a couple of guys back at that position. Is the starting QB1 spot, I mean, we know Malik Murphy is highly touted and, big-time recruit when he got out of high school. Is it his spot, or is there still some maybe questions about who might be behind center for Oregon State?
Bray and Gundy have kind of shied away from it, but my expectation it's going to be Murphy. But you're going to see a lot of Jabari Johnson still on the field as well, so he'll get some packages, he'll get some looks, because Malik has said even though he can run and he has that mobility to run and extend plays with his legs if needed, he doesn't really like to do that. Is what he said. He'd rather stay back there in the pocket and throw downfield. But there's a few times, even in spring practices in the spring game, where he ripped off some long runs. But Jabari's probably going to be more of a change of pace kind of guy and get some of those looks where he's running the ball more so than Malik. But Jabari's even stepped up his game as well too, and looks a lot better from last season to this spring. And biggest point of emphasis for Jabari was being able to learn the playbook, learn what's being asked of him on each and every play from Gundy, and being more comfortable in sitting back there in the pocket, going through progressions, and if a play breaks down, then using his legs to scramble instead of, okay, nothing's open, I'm going to run and not look downfield for somebody that's open. So a lot of improvement even from Jabari as well too, but it's going to be Malik if at the end of fall camp, if I had to put a time frame on it. It's just a matter of when Gundy and Bray are going to say that Malik is going to be our starter.
Kind of wanted to ask you about the big picture here, because you get to the spring game and it kind of feels like it's the end of spring practices. You're heading towards the summer. Last season, it felt like it was just a whirlwind of an off season. This year, a little bit more stable. How do you feel like this spring went this year compared to last season with Trent Bray as the head coach?
Oh, it was like night and day difference. This is a lot of the players described, like it felt like being at a practice throughout like game week. That's how it kind of felt. The energy was very much night and day difference. Everybody was going to work, putting their head down, very lunch pail type of attitude. And that's something where I know Hankerson was saying that like the intensity that they brought in the first couple weeks, coaches were telling them to dial it back. So this team is very, very much been nose to the grindstone all of spring. And one of the biggest things that's changed from last spring to this spring was there's a lot more emphasis on team periods and less on the individual drills and position group stuff. So there was still that, but it was more dominated by team periods, 7-on-7s. And I know Dylan Sikorsky was saying that, like, hey, look, as an offensive lineman, those team periods are really beneficial as much as the individual work is in getting comfortable in what we're doing each and every single play and being able to understand what the defense is trying to do to us on each and every single play. So a lot more of a focus on really the team aspect of practice rather than just more individual based. And I think a lot more people are a lot more comfortable in the system in year 2 versus year 1, trying to figure out everything brand new, how Bray was going to be as a head coach. And I think the additions of bringing in a Mark Kreiner and other veteran coaches into that room has really helped out Bray in being able to not only be a defensive coordinator, but also coach up inside linebackers, position group that he coached before he was named the head coach. So there's being able to handle all that stuff has been really, really big for Bray. And I think it's paid off dividends in the 4 or so weeks that we had of spring practices.
You know, as spring practices have now wrapped up, we've had the spring game, so the Beavers are now kind of truly into this summer off-season period where college football really does kind of start to slow down some. And, as we wrap it up, Knight, asking kind of as the whole bigger picture type of feel of the program, I was just kind of curious, you've gotten to see practices, you've gotten to see the spring game. Is there anything that kind of stands out to you? Like, I don't know if there's still time to maybe add guys to the roster going into fall camp ahead of the start of the season, or what you might be able to do, but any kind of areas of concern that you saw in spring that either they need to find ways to shore up here during the summer or just work harder on going into fall to make sure that they see more improvement than they saw during the spring portion?
In terms of position groups that were kind of areas of concern for me was the offensive line, but also, too, at the same time, while they were missing Jacob Strand, Tyler Morano, Van Wells didn't practice being on veteran rest, JT Hand we didn't see, Keon Cox, transfer offensive lineman from UCF, practiced a little bit, but didn't see him in the latter half of spring practices. Really the only starter that you could really pencil in along that offensive line, Josiah Timoteo from Nevada, was the only one that saw consistent action along the offensive line. And so essentially you're missing your first team offensive line through most of spring, and you couldn't really get a good gauge on where this group was at with Coach Cav coming in. And I think that they could likely add another guy. They did add an addition there to the offensive line post spring game, and Bray was saying that, hey, we have guys on campus. He was like, I can't say who, but there were guys that were visiting that they were able to add to their roster. So Will Larkins from Georgia State is another addition to that group. So a little bit more depth there. Tyler Bolton also too has not practiced, so his status is kind of TBD as we get closer to fall camp and wherever he's at with his recovery. So adding to that room, I think, was really big. And then they added another addition to the DB room, transfer from James Madison, Hopper. So they've added some guys kind of here and there, but really offensive line was my biggest thing. But Bray was also saying, like, yeah, while we were dinged up there, those guys should be back for fall camp and being able to practice fully. So it's one of those where, like, those that got to see the spring game were talking about that, but also I'm like, I remind them, like, hey, like, this is the one time where you can't really judge a group that well. Like, if those issues are from spring come into fall camp with the offensive line, right? Like, then that's kind of really big cause for concern at that point in time. But I think if anything, it's probably just to shore up some rooms and with some guys to raise up the floor of like, say, like the wide receiver room. I know that they've just lost two guys to the portal. Both Jeremiah Noga and Jalen Holmes announced that they're entering the portal today. So they may add somebody just to help raise up the floor there, but they're pretty deep at that spot, in addition to the DB room as well, too. So that's another room, even with the addition of Hopper, that they're still pretty deep at. So they may add maybe one or two more guys depending on the fit and if it makes sense. Yeah, that was really my only biggest, like, position group of concern was the offensive line, but I think they should be fine by fall camp, in my opinion. And if Van Wells and JT Hand and Tyler Morano and Jacob Strand are all practicing and ready to go, along with Keon Cox, like, I think this group will be able to be in a good spot come week 1 against Cal.
One last thing that I kind of wanted to ask you about before we let you go is just kind of your thoughts on the state of the Pac-12. Obviously, Beaver baseball is having a successful season as an independent. Beaver basketball, moderately successful season for both the men and women in the WCC. But there still is a lot of questions about the Pac-12 and what the status will be in a year. What do you think the current thoughts about the state of the Pac-12 are in Corvallis, and where do you think that things will be in a year?
That's a very good question. I've been covering realignment for 3 years now in total, so spanning both my time at the Barometer and now Beavers Edge. So for me, in the way I feel it, I think a lot of people are getting pretty restless in terms of figuring out who that final team is going to be, at least to get to 8. And how many more are going to be underway, and how many more additions we're gonna see come through. But I think for myself, personally, in terms of the state of Pac-12, like, if you can get some good high quality members in there, and if you can get likely a Memphis or a Tulane, I think you're in a really good spot going forward. But that's something where, like, I really am, like, hearing everything, all the rumor mill churning through of potential schools. I'm like, all right, like, let's get to the end here. Like, let's get to our big reveal of who this final team is going to be, because, like, after a certain point, like, you've got to make that call, and those options get limited further and further down the longer you wait. But I think it's a lot of restlessness. But in the end, if current Pac-12 leadership decides that a school is going to be the best fit for this conference, then I think that they'll be in a good spot for when everybody becomes official Pac-12 members, 2026 and beyond.
Covering the Oregon State Beavers for BeaversEdge.com and filling us in here on the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show, Ryan Harlan. Ryan, really appreciate the time, man. Great stuff there. Thanks for covering the spring game and giving us all the insight that you got from that. Good stuff. Anything, give you the chance to promote yourself, BeaversEdge.com. Anything kind of in the works that might entice people to check out the website and check out your work going on there?
We're officially in baseball dominated coverage right now, so we'll be covering a 3-game series against the Ducks this weekend, and then I'll be at Goss for the midweek matchup on Tuesday. So that's where I'll be at. So stay tuned for that. So not coverage for this weekend, but next week.
Nice. All right, man. Well, enjoy the baseball stuff coming up for you there, and we'll be checking in when we get a little bit closer to football season once again.
Yeah, no, of course. Appreciate you guys having me on, as always.
All right, man. Take care. That is Ryan Harlan there joining us on the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show, our spring special, talking some football here on the YouTube stream and covering Ducks and Beavers spring game football stuff going on. I really appreciate Ryan joining us to give us good stuff there.
Really good stuff, yeah.
In depth on what's going on with the Beavers. I had read some about the offensive line. That's huge for the Beavers. It's a spot where they have to be good because, just around that team, they're fighting the uphill battle, and you've got to have that great foundation up front.
It's huge. And, you think about the success that Jonathan Smith was able to have at Oregon State in the recent years, and it was big because the offensive line was huge for him. They were able to get the ground game going. You think about that win over Oregon at Reser Stadium a few years ago where the Ducks were potentially going to go to the Pac-12 championship and then potentially go to the College Football Playoff. And, they soured the Ducks' dreams with Bo Nix a little bit hampered in that game. And, in that game, they didn't even really run the ball or throw the ball, I should say, in the entire second half of that game. That offensive line was legit. And, it felt like once Coach Smith left and went to Michigan State, things changed for that offensive line. A lot of players weren't there, graduated some players. They had a first-round pick, a tackle, go to the Saints. So, you lose some of those depth guys, and with the state of the Pac-12 and the conference kind of crumbling, you have guys transfer in, transfer out, and so the offensive line certainly took a hit, and you saw it at the end of last season. It was very thin in the trenches for Oregon State, and hopefully some reinforcements. Maybe this year's a little bit better, but a lot of really great stuff from Ryan.
Yeah, definitely really good stuff there. I feel like kind of going into this off season, like talking and thinking about it and digging into it a little bit more. Last year, first year for Trent Bray, we had the collapse of the conference. You had the coaching staff leaving. Last year felt like it was in shambles. It feels like he had the time. He has kind of started to rebuild things. It's not where they want it to be, but there is a brighter future hopefully ahead with the rebuilt Pac-12. And Trent Bray has now got his second season. It feels like the Beavers are in a better spot going into this summer than they were a year ago
100%.
after
and the other
departures.
thing, too, is they did lose their defensive coordinator, Keith Hayward. He moves on. He's now at Cal. Initially, it didn't look like he was going to coach this season. Now he's going to be on the staff at Cal. But you have Trent Bray moving from head coach to head coach and defensive coordinator, which isn't unique. Some coaches out there like that. Some coaches they're more offensive-minded, and so you'll sometimes see a head coach, offensive coordinator type of role for that head coach. But, Trent Bray, he's the opposite. He's the defensive guy. He had a lot of success as a defensive coordinator at Oregon State, and so you hope that translates. And him moving over to that room, it brings that stability. And that honestly, that was the breath of fresh air that I heard from Ryan, was just talking to him about that question that I asked him about how this offseason compared to last offseason. And he just said, like, the players feel like it's completely different. Like they've just been hammering away. There's not as many distractions this year. Because last year, we get wrapped up. There's so much that happened, but like Damian Martinez, it looked like he's coming back, but then he transfers to Miami, and then more and more players start to leave, and coaches leaving. It was crazy for Oregon State. And this year, a lot more stability and a lot more time for the players just to put their heads down and get to work, which was good.
Yeah, it'll be fun to see what goes on for the Beavers coming up here this next fall. All right, we got to transition to our final topic of the day, which is the NFL Draft, Round 1 yesterday. We got to get on this because you've got until 1:30, and that's when the Cubs start. So they've announced a restart time for the Cubs after their weather delay. So we got till 1:30.
I love that that's your deadline.
Yep, that's our deadline. We got to get done before the Cubs start. So here we go. Round 2 kicks off today, but yesterday we saw Round 1 go off without a hitch. Like I said, I was broadcasting at the time, so it's hard to keep tabs on what's going on, but a number of trades, it ended up being a first round that saw some wheeling and dealing, and I think might have caught a few fans off guard, or at least excited fans with the idea that their team could possibly be moving, and so we saw a little bit of shakeup in the first round, unfortunately. So Cam Ward, number 1 overall pick for my Tennessee Titans. He's the new guy. We'll see. I mean,
he's not the guy. He's just the new guy.
Well, I'm intrigued to see what they do because they've had Will Levis. What do they do with Will Levis? He was the starting quarterback for like last year and a half. I'm curious. Do they look to try and move him?
Yeah,
is there a market? Is there a market for Will Levis?
Who would be the backup?
I want to know Mason Rudolph went back to the Steelers. Yeah. So
he's actually the only quarterback on the roster right now in Pittsburgh because Justin Fields and Russell Wilson left, and so and that was surprising too, right? We talk about surprises in the draft. The Steelers, I should say, electing not to draft Shedeur Sanders and instead draft Derek Harmon. First of all, congrats to him, Oregon Duck. Second of all, is Mason Rudolph your guy? Or are the Steelers going to go after Aaron Rodgers? Is this a done deal? They're getting Aaron Rodgers? It might be because he might honestly be the best option. Unless you want to roll out Jalen Milroe, who you could maybe get in the second round, Tyler Shuck. So if somehow you could trade up in the top of the second round, maybe you get a Shedeur Sanders, but it's not looking good.
And I've heard rumors of, maybe Aaron. I mean, they just took Cam Ward. Aaron Rodgers, is he going to want to come into another one of these situations where he's got the
You've heard rumors for Aaron Rodgers to the Titans?
I've heard talk about, would it be a possibility that they go after him? He's got a home in Tennessee. So, yeah, apparently he's got a place in Nashville. So I would be fine without that. Don't need that, but apparently that's a rumor. So you've got Cam Ward now, Will Levis, your boy Tim Boyle. Isn't he the guy you're always railing about? Just had the worst college records and just there's no sense in why he is in the NFL.
Okay, apparently he's just an offensive mastermind.
He's 7 years in the league.
Yeah, but that's the reason why is based on stats, in the entirety of his career. And again, this is his stats. His first 3 years of college football, he went a combined 0-8, throwing for about 1,100 yards with 1 touchdown and 13 interceptions.
And that guy's an NFL quarterback.
And then he transferred from UConn to Eastern Kentucky, sat out a year, did not play. Then he was the starter for a whole year. 2,134 yards, 11 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. What about those statistics? What about them? A QB with a 12-26 touchdown to interception ratio. It's not like he's fast. He had negative 162 yards and a touchdown. It's not like he's an athlete. He's a pocket passer. And then he gets to the NFL, and you know what he does? 60% completion percentage, 5 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. How is he on an NFL roster? I don't understand it.
The big, beautiful brain of Tim Boyle.
Apparently, he is it's like having a coach out there. He's 0-5 in his career as well as a starting quarterback in the NFL.
Brandon Allen also on the roster as an active quarterback
Allen's
as
still
well.
in the league?
Yeah, 9 years in the league for that young man, too.
God.
So
I think Raider legend as well.
So there you go. Those are the quarterbacks on the roster right now for the Titans. I guess if that's what I'm looking at as the backups, I think you got to keep Will Levis at that point. But Cam Ward, it didn't excite me as we were talking about this the other day. I wanted Abdul Carter. I thought that would be the guy. Now, you could have taken him number 1 overall, but I think it would have shocked everybody if you had done that. I would have loved to. We see the Giants trade up back into the first round for a second first-round pick to take Jackson Dart in the with their second first-round draft pick at the quarterback position. I had heard some rumors, everybody's got rumors right now, but, maybe there was interest in the Giants moving to number 1 to take Cam Ward at the quarterback position. I would have been so good with moving back to number 3 and taking Abdul Carter at that number 3 spot, which the Giants did, instead of taking Cam Ward number 1 overall and try to build other pieces. My thought was, in 5 years, or whatever the contract lengths are for rookies, it seems like 5 years is probably about right.
It's 5 years for a first-round pick.
Okay.
So it's 4 years. If you're a first-round pick, you have the
fifth-year option. Okay, yeah.
And then after that, every other round is
when his rookie deal is starting to wrap up, what's more likely that you're looking to do? Are you looking to re-sign Cam Ward, or are you looking to re-sign Abdul Carter? And to me, it just feels like your higher hit rate with a guy that is considered to be a top prospect in this draft, which Cam Ward, top guy at his position, Abdul Carter, top guy at his position. So they're both top draft picks or top prospects. But I think it feels like your hit rate is a little bit better on the defensive line to make an impact and have a guy that you want to re-sign after his rookie deal. So we were talking, I feel like the floor is higher for Carter than it is for Ward. And right now it feels like you just need pieces that go in the right direction, that fit your team, and that make you go improve your team for the Tennessee Titans. And the assumption is next year is going to be a deeper draft for quarterbacks. So maybe give Will Levis another year of development, see if maybe there's something there. Granted, I know we've given him some time, but see if maybe there's this spark that just clicks and he gets there.
I'll tell you what, he does have a better touchdown to interception ratio than Tim Boyle.
Well, I would hope so. Levis has done good things, but he has done absolutely bonehead things as well.
That's the problem, is that he just makes the mistakes in the biggest moments.
Yes.
And the other thing, too, is that, he fumbles the ball a lot. Last season, 10 fumbles,
a lot of
6
turnovers.
of them lost. A lot of turnovers. And that's the problem with Will Levis, is that he just has the turnovers at the wrong time. As a Raiders fan back in the day, I hope Matt Bagley's watching. If he's not, he's missing
You can
out.
clip this and send it to him.
But, Carson Palmer, when he was a Raider, he was bad. And I understand, after he left the Raiders, he went to Arizona and had a pretty good season and, led the Cardinals to some success, made it to the NFC Championship game, yada, yada, yada. But he reminded me a lot of what Will Levis was last season. He'd get to the red zone and then just turn the ball over. Or it'd be like a bid spot. The Titans are in the game, and then he just turns the ball over. And that's the problem, is that, he lacks the clutch gene. And you can't teach that. You just can't. And maybe he
put down the mayo, and maybe you hang on to the football.
Exactly. Maybe that's it. Maybe you need to incentivize him. Just, hey, Will, if you throw a touchdown, mayo for the week.
We'll put the mayo back in your fridge.
Yeah.
Hold it hostage.
You just get eggs this week, no vinegar.
your Las Vegas Raiders take Ashton Genty, and I think I heard the yells from the parking lot. You were so excited. That is the pick you were hoping for.
Yes, it was.
Were you worried when the Jags moved up to the second pick?
I was relieved.
Because, it seemed to mean that they were taking Travis Hunter.
Yeah. So my worry was that somebody was going to trade with Jacksonville to number 5, or Jacksonville themselves was going to draft Genty at number 5. The reasoning why they would draft him, he's from Jacksonville. He was born there. I guess he's not necessarily from there because he bounced around a lot. He was an Army kid. But he was born in Jacksonville. That's where he spent most of his youth. So it felt like a very big homecoming pick. And then there was rumors on draft day that the Chicago Bears were going to trade up from number 10 to number 6 and number 5 to draft Ashton Genty. So I was really worried. I was really worried that somebody was going to trade up, whether it be the Bears, whether it be somebody else, ahead of the Raiders to draft Ashton Genty. What I did know is I did not want the Raiders to draft an offensive lineman. I did not want the Raiders to draft Mason Graham. I know he's going to be good, but I wanted a flashy pick. I wanted something. Give me some energy. Give me Ashton Genty. And as soon as they traded up, I was like, oh, yeah, this is looking good. The Browns are going to trade down. They're going to draft Mason Graham. We don't have to worry about drafting the Michigan guy because Spytek, the general manager, and Tom Brady, I know they're Michigan men, but we're not drafting the blue and gold guy. Maybe we'll draft Will Johnson today. But as soon as they traded down, I was like, all right, Genty's our guy. Genty's our guy. And then I waited because you can't just assume things with the Raiders.
Oh, yeah.
When the best guy's available, the Raiders look the opposite way. It's just how it's been.
They're the Will Levis.
Yeah,
draft
exactly.
picks.
They have no clutch gene. When they get to the first round, they're like shaking in their boots, like, "Oh, Alex Leatherwood." No. What they got a generational running back. They got a guy that is going to be a heck of a teammate. That's going to be there early, work hard, and at the end of the day, a lot of people doubted him. He went to Boise State for a reason. And honestly, best quote, Green Bay's calm. There's not much to do here. From a guy that played college football in Idaho. He's going to have a lot to do in Las Vegas. Hopefully he stays out of trouble.
Yeah, he's going to have plenty of options.
I think just from a character standpoint, perfect fit. Him and Max Crosby, really two big leaders right away on the Raiders. And, the Raiders had a really bad rushing season last year. We were talking about Zamir White yesterday and how poor of a season he had as the lead running back. Alexander Madison, to go from Zeus Williams, Alexander Madison, Sincere McCormick to Ashton Genty is like night and day.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like going from Will Levis to Cam Ward. It's a big addition.
Yeah, that I guess so. There you go. Anything that stands out to you from the first round of the draft?
Yeah,
any big surprises for you?
I think there was a few big surprises. Again, the Steelers drafting Derek Harmon. Incredible story, by the way.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up. Go ahead. You I'm sure you got it there.
Yeah, I mean, so his mom was ill and was in the hospital yesterday, and he got drafted and immediately headed to the hospital to tell her that he just got drafted, and he told her, and then minutes later she passed away.
Yeah, I mean, how crazy. What should be one of the highlights of your life, this is a major moment. You've put in work through high school, into college, it just so much work and effort to get to where the goal of being a professional athlete, being in the NFL. First round draft pick, that's a payday that's coming your way. So there's a lot of reasons to be extremely excited. It's also now going to be remembered as the day that he told his mom, my dream came true. And that was the moment. It's like, okay, she can let go. And she dies. I mean, I think probably he's been able to mentally prepare for it. His mom was on life support prior to that. So it's not like this was a sudden, unexpected thing. But just the day that you experienced your dream come true, at least he got to share that with his mom one last time.
Yeah.
But it's also going to be the anniversary and the memory of her passing is the same day that you were drafted into the NFL. It's
the highest
so
of the
crazy.
Highs and the lowest of the lows
so
at
crazy.
the same time. And, just incredible that he was able to get there in time.
I'm so happy he did.
Yeah.
I mean,
no, I saw that tweet that he was rushing to the hospital to try to tell her the news. And I'm just really happy that he was able to do that. A special moment for him. But honestly, surprising pick. I don't think that a lot of people thought that the Steelers were going to draft him in that spot, and they did. Stoked for the Packers. That was a surprise. Could you believe it? The Packers actually drafted a first-round wide receiver. The last time they did it?
2002.
You know what year I was born? 2002.
Oh, great.
My entire life. The Packers had not drafted an offense.
I mentioned earlier, my brother-in-law, my wife's family, they're all from Wisconsin, and so everybody else still lives out in Wisconsin.
Yeah. Did you get that cheese head from them?
Yeah, got the cheese head in the background for representing there. He's big into the Packers, huge Packers guy, obviously, and he did a couple of mock drafts. He did a mock draft is one with just a straight. Yeah, he did a mock draft. I mean, he did just a mock draft of Packers picks, 7-round or all of their picks. He did it just straight up with the picks that they had, and then maybe with some trades mixed in, he did a second one. And so he really dug into it. He really got all into it. Neither of his mock drafts have the Packers taking a wide receiver because no one expected it.
Nobody expects it.
I saw that and I was like, I got to go see how he did with his mock draft for the first round. Nope. He had a defensive tackle and I think he had a defensive lineman in both of his mock drafts that he did. And so, very surprising. And that's a wide receiver room that feel, obviously gets stronger with Golden out of Texas.
They needed a number one type of wide receiver.
They've got a lot of good role guys there, but needing a number one. It'll be
Watson
it'll be interesting to see how that kind of shakes things up for them. In fantasy football, I've gotten a lot of stock in some of those wide receivers there, so I've liked what they've done. I think with Jordan Love back there, the potential's there for them to have a good passing attack, and I think adding one more piece that's going to really help solidify things, that should be fun to watch, I think, coming up next year for the Pack.
100%. Another surprising one, if you want to stay in that division, the Chicago Bears at number 10. They picked Colston Loveland over Tyler Warren. It's not necessarily surprising that Loveland went in the first round. I think he was a first-round type of tight end. But him going over Warren was definitely a little bit of a surprise. I really thought that Tyler Warren was that number one tight end. But, I think that Ben Johnson, he really liked Loveland. Loveland kind of a little bit more like that Sam Laporta type, whereas, the comps that I was getting for Tyler Warren was, more of a Greg Olson type of tight end. And I think Cole Kmet's kind of more the Tyler Warren style of tight end, and Loveland's more of your route runner type of tight end, a little bit different of a type of player. And so I think Loveland maybe fits with Chicago a little bit more, but definitely interesting because I didn't expect Loveland to be drafted ahead of Warren.
Yeah, I think that one was a surprise to a lot of people. I just wanted to make we've kind of hit on it a couple of times, but Oregon gets two drafted in the first round. We mentioned Derek Harmon, defensive tackle, going to the Pittsburgh Steelers, 21 overall. And then Josh Connerly Jr., offensive lineman, going to the Washington Commanders at number 29 overall. So the Ducks continue their streak. 6 consecutive seasons they've had a pick in the first round for Oregon. That's huge for the program.
Did you see Cliff Kingsbury with Josh Connerly?
No, I didn't.
You did?
No.
Oh, it was really fun. So, traditional draft day type of style. So I was talking to you yesterday. You hadn't seen Draft Day in a long time.
Okay,
the movie.
yeah.
But there was a scene in the movie where Sonny, he's the GM, Kevin Costner's character. He drops this crumpled piece of paper and they open it up and it says Vontae Mack no matter what, right?
Yeah.
So Cliff Kingsbury went to the general manager's office, dropped a paper note that wrote, "Hey, I stopped by, pick the Oregon OT, thanks." And so then, they drafted him, and, Kingsbury's in the draft room holding up
showing
the paper
that off.
to, everybody, please draft the Oregon offensive tackle. And he got his wish. He got his wish. Really happy for Josh Connerly. In fact, actually, when I was watching the draft, I was sitting there on the phone with my dad, and I was like, man, the Raiders coming up. Right now, we're at the end of the first round. Raiders have the 5th overall pick in the second round. Imagine if Josh Connerly fell to us, team him up with JPJ, get that Oregon connection back together. And as soon as I said that, the Commanders took him. And I was
there
like,
you go.
No, he's gone. Super stoked for Josh Connerly, though. Heck of a pick for them. We talk about other surprises. Were you surprised that the Giants drafted Jackson Dart over Shedeur Sanders?
See, and I was going to bring this up. So Shedeur Sanders obviously is the big storyline, drops out of the first round. I'm looking through, there's mock drafts everywhere, so you can pick your own. I'm looking through NFL.com's second-round mock draft, and I'm seeing Jalen Milroe. I saw Tyler Shuck. I think, Quinn Ewers maybe. I don't see Shedeur Sanders in their second-round mock draft. And going into it, obviously, speculation was all over the place. He could go super high. He could go top 10. He could fall in the draft. He could possibly fall out of the first round. He ends up falling out of the first round. Now, maybe even not going in the second round would be a bit of a surprise there. So, yeah, I'm a little surprised to see the Jackson Dart. Now, I know it felt like there was a lot of momentum behind Jackson Dart kind of as the draft got closer. So
it felt like the Giants were we're in on Jackson Dart. And to be honest, I was too.
Yeah.
I remember we were talking about
it yesterday.
Months ago, even yesterday, I was right in there with the Jackson Dart train. I really thought that, if I was a Raiders fan, and, at some points they were talking about the Raiders maybe drafting Shedeur Sanders if he fell to us, or what the Raiders should do quarterback-wise, because at that point, the Raiders hadn't acquired Geno Smith. So the Raiders still didn't have a quarterback. And so A lot of people thought that the Raiders might draft Shedeur Sanders, and I was like, no. I think Jackson Dart's the guy. Got to team him up with JPJ, his former high school center. But, man, the Giants really liked what they saw on the tape. I think the funniest thing, did you see the John Gruden show that he did with Jackson Dart?
No, I don't think I saw that one.
So Gruden, brought back, the QB camp show that he did. He used to do it on ESPN.
Yeah.
He'd bring in the top quarterbacks and then sit and
pick their brain.
Yeah, exactly. So he gets up to Jackson Dart and he's like, "Give me your snap count." And he's like, "You want to see it?" And he's like, "I want to hear it." And he goes, claps. Just that's it, claps. And he's like, No, I want to hear you say it. And he's like, "Yeah." That's all he did his entire college career. He's like, "What if you had a fake snap?" He's like, "Oh yeah, it was called purple." 2 claps. That was it. So I don't know how that's going to translate in the NFL. You're going to have to get under center. You're going to have to use your voice. But it was so funny because Druden's like, "You've been in college for 3-4 years and you were just clapping? I could clap."
John Gruden is a treasure.
By the way, did you see John Gruden today? What he was wearing?
Nope. No, I haven't.
He was wearing a Cubs jacket.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right.
He's
getting everybody's gear, so I was not sure who was going to be sporting
he got a big box from Louisville. His brother Jay Gruden went to Louisville, and Louisville sent him a bunch of stuff.
Gotcha.
But as he was opening up the box, he was wearing a really nice Chicago Cubs jacket.
Jealous.
So
Speaking of which, it's 1:31, first pitch, hopefully happening for Chicago Cubs.
Real quick before we go, because I know that you want to get to the Cubs game. Shedeur Sanders, you think he goes number 1 in the second round? You think the Browns draft him there?
I really don't know. I'm looking at this mock draft that says no, they're not going to. And then the Browns have so many places to try and fill, and they've got a lot of picks.
Where do you think he goes then?
Who needs a quarterback? Now after the first round. So you have the Giants. Yes, Steelers still need somebody. You got the Aaron Rodgers thing hanging over them. But
the Saints,
with Derek Carr's injury,
injury up question. And then kind of the Browns because
the Browns. With Deshaun Watson, they may be ready to just cut their losses.
Yeah, well, I think they restructured the contract, so it's basically just this year, and then after that, then you move on.
Raiders, you guys got your Geno Smith, so
we don't need a quarterback.
Don't need a guy right now, that at least not at this point. You could save it until later to maybe find somebody that matures into that spot. I'm trying to think of other spots that Carolina, New England, those guys all have young guys that are in there. Jacksonville's got Trevor Lawrence.
Cowboys, maybe. Could you imagine if the Cowboys drafted Shedeur? That would be the most toxic thing that could ever happen to the Cowboys.
So, the Browns, they've got 2 picks in the first 5 in the second round. So, here I'm looking at the Saints pick middle, early there. And this NFL mock draft here has them taking Jalen Milroe, which
really,
he's an intriguing prospect.
So in The Athletic, they have Shedeur going number 1. But
really?
Would you take Milroe over Shedeur?
Kind of depends on where I'm at. Are we looking for a guy that we see potential, or are we looking for a guy that is going to be, we could probably throw in there this next year? Because I think Shedeur is probably the more polished product out of college, ready to step onto an NFL field today. But Milroe's got those he's got the Lamar Jackson comps, he's got that look.
I don't see it.
He's a runner, and
I understand that, but Lamar was a way better passer than Jalen Milroe ever was.
Milroe, that's area that he needs to improve for sure.
Yeah, he can definitely run the football. He is very good at running the football. That's my concern. Is that he's a quarterback, and I get it. He can run the football, but you need to throw the football as a quarterback, especially in the NFL, and especially when you're going to get hit a lot. And your career goes by quickly.
That's where you look at these guys. You got Shedeur and you've got Cam Ward. I kind of look at what's happened with Caleb Williams. He goes to the Bears, and he comes from in college just would run around and do magic and make plays happen. Cam Ward kind of had some of that to him at times at Miami and at Washington State, and I didn't see him at Incarnate Word, but I'll assume that he did similar things there as well. He was a guy that would find ways to make the impossible happen.
Not only that.
That doesn't happen when you get to the NFL unless you're Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, well, Cam Ward made a lot of those Patrick Mahomes type of plays. I'll never forget being at Washington State because I called the Oregon Wazoo game from 3 years ago now. Gosh, it's like getting up to that 3 years ago at this point. The one where Mace Funa had the pick six at the end to seal the deal for Oregon, and then the Spanish broadcast was like, quack, 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 quack. Anyways, that play, that game, there was a play where Cam Ward scrambled outside the pocket, spun around. As he's like falling down, getting dragged from behind, he flips it across the field, and the guy catches it and runs up the field for a first down. Like, he just makes something out of nothing all the time, and he's the closest I've seen to like a Kyler Murray, Patrick Mahomes type player. I think he's like a bigger Kyler Murray. That's what I would like equate Cam Ward to.
See, and I just worry, are we going to get a guy like Will Levis that wants to run around and try to make that impossible play happen and then ends up doing the surrender cobra on his knees while a pick six goes the other direction? I mean, this is where I'm at. Is the game, as you take it to the next level, I mean, like I said, Caleb Williams did that a ton at USC. We saw him make incredible plays. What happened at Chicago? He was sacked out of his mind, like just a ton. And I mean, as much as I love my Titans, they don't protect the quarterback very well down there. And it has been the issue why we've gone from Mariota to Tannehill to Will Levis. It's just we can't find a way to support a quarterback. And I think the Titans need to take. I saw it mocked here that taking a wide receiver in the second round. I don't think that's a bad idea. I've been looking at the wide receiver room after the addition of Tyler Lockett in free agency here. I was like, oh, Tyler Lockett, yay. And then I looked at our wide receiver room and I was like, oh, God, we need Tyler Lockett. That is a huge addition for us.
Right.
We really need the help there.
That's how I felt like looking at the Raiders when the NFL
with the
posted.
running back.
No. Wide receiver.
Yeah.
Because they showed like the offense yesterday. The NFL posted like the Raiders offense is looking good. And it was like Geno Smith, Ashton Genty, Brock Bowers, 3 legit guys.
Yeah.
And then it was like Jacoby Myers, great wide receiver, too.
Nice role player.
Trey Tucker, good like wide receiver 3, speed guy. And then it was like some guy I'd never heard of, Ramel Keaton. I was like, God, the Raiders need a wide receiver.
If you haven't heard of him, they're digging deep in the barrel there.
I looked at it, like it was like the Raiders have like 4 wide receivers that are all undrafted free agent, like practice squad players that have just like somehow bounced around the league. And I'm like, God, can we please get a wide receiver? Please, please, please. Can Luther Burden please fall to us? Who do you want to draft? You got the 3rd pick in the second round. We can kind of end on that. Who do you want for the Titans?
I mean, I like the idea of a wide receiver. I think that could be good. I mean, I'm always thinking offensive line, but I feel like we're always taking an offensive lineman, and then where are we? So I would be good with maybe a wide receiver in that next spot. I honestly am looking here. So Luther Burden was the guy that's mocked at the one I was looking at there. Defense, we talked about defensive edge. The guy that you saw in a mock draft that maybe goes to the Titans. That spot. This was a name that I wrote down as one to watch when the upcoming fantasy football draft stuff comes around. Jake Beck, the kid from TCU. He shined in all the senior games and stuff. Guy was catching everything.
Yep. Also a great story.
With his brother being the victim in New Orleans there. Yeah, that great story there as well. I don't know. I'm looking at some of these wide receiver names, though. I mean, I'm sure one of these guys stands out in the long run, but not a lot of them are like names that I'm like, oh, yeah, that guy was dynamite kind of coming out of college. So I don't know. I'm not good at this stuff, so I have no idea what they're going to do. I could guess all sorts of things, and I'm probably going to be wrong on every one of them.
Yeah.
But I could see wide receiver or focus on the defensive line. I think would be the 2 places I'd like to see him go.
Well, good luck to your Titans today.
Yeah, there we go. All right, well, we'll wrap it up. Let's see here. It's the top of the first. It's still scoreless between Cubs and the Phillies, so I've got time to go catch and see what's going on there. Thanks, everybody, for joining us and having some fun with us. Appreciate everybody chiming in the comment section. Hopefully we address some of what was being said there, and I appreciate everybody sticking with us and hanging out here with it. Man, what would we do? 100 minutes.
Cool.
I told Knight, we don't have to go 2 hours. What do we go and do? Almost go 2 hours.
Well, I mean,
so,
that's typically how long we talk for an Umpqua Basin Tailgate show when you factor in the breaks.
For sure. Yeah, we factor in the commercial breaks. We eliminated all that, and here we go. We just rail right through it all. So I appreciate Joey Mack and Ryan Harlan joining us here and giving us some insight into Ducks and Beavers from spring football. If you're headed to the Oregon football game tomorrow, have a great time. Hopefully the weather's good for you, and we'll look forward to talking about it. No, I don't know when we'll be back on doing it again here, but I'm sure Knight will probably convince me to do it at some point. So we'll be talking to you again soon. If not here during the summer at some point talking some football, we'll be back in the fall. So it's been great having a spring special with you folks. Thanks for tuning in. That's Knight Jarecki, and I'm Joey Keeran. We'll talk to you guys later.